Thank you for inviting me to this interesting discussion. My name is Honorable Eze Echesi. I was the former Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Anambra State, between 2006 and 2012. In the 8 years of the P2B's administration, I was with him as a Commissioner for Finance for 6 years, and somebody else did the remaining 2 years after I'd left. Before then, I was a banker. I worked in various banks and rose to positions of general manager, transactions, corporate banking, and investment banking. Thereafter, that is after my stint at Anambra State as the Commissioner for Finance, I've moved on to be with the Ibeto Group as a Group Executive Director in charge of investments and operations. That's where I am now. And prior to then, I had been director in a couple of places, Access Bank, Congo, DRC. I was a director there for 4 years. I was also a director in Access Bank, Gambia, for another 4 years before I retired. I'm married with 5 children.
How was he able to generate money to be able to offset those outstanding bills and be able to do the things he did, like road construction and the other infrastructures he put in place, and also be able to save the amount of money that he said he saved?
How he managed to raise the money to do all the things he did from the Federation account, number one, and then two, internally generated revenue. Pull the two of them together and then ensure that things are done properly. For a construction of a road that will take 80 million naira and somebody wants to do it for 1 billion, it is not in the era of P2B. The State Tenders Board had very big responsibility to ensure that review of contracts are done in such a way that we shredded to the bones. P2B was not interested in what will come to him as an individual. He was interested in what he will achieve with the little resources the state government was getting from both the Federation account and from internally generated revenue. If you prudently manage the resources available to you, you will be able to do the things you want to do and also be able to save what you want to save. He is somebody who believes in savings as a guarantee and protection of the state for the future. But a number of other people may not believe that, but he believed it and he acted it out. I get amazed and I find it ridiculous when people say, now he did not leave the money he left in the coffers of the state government when he finished his service to Anambra State. It's funny. The reason it's funny is that the records are there. These things have been put in the public domain with the banks where they are, the account numbers of those accounts, both for the Naira deposits and the foreign exchange. He did not say it was cash all the way. In both cash and investments, 75 billion. What I'll not be able to do to you now is to give you the breakdown of it. I know that the foreign exchange aspect of it, through bonds and other investments, may have been approximately in the region of $150 million. About that. I will not be very specific because I don't have the documents here, and it's 10 years already since I left the administration. So I may not have all the figures readily in my head. But for sure, that amount was left in the coffers of the state. Never seen before in the history of any state in this country called Nigeria.
Apart from the normal money they go to Abuja and collect at the end of every month to share, I was able to raise money for Anambra in terms of generating revenue.
We raised money from actually three major sources. One is the Federation account. That is where everybody goes to get his own money. But what you do with it is what matters, not even how much you got. Because Anambra State happens to be one of the states that gets the least funds from the Federation account. But what you do with it is actually what matters. Then internally generated revenue. You get to some places where all manner of people will be cutting away money that's supposed to come into the state covers, into their private pockets and running helter-skelter here and there. Of course, P2B will not allow that. So we made sure that the much we could get from internally generated revenue, the one coming from Federation account, was made available. Then raising money also from international agencies, World Bank, and so on and so forth, which Professor Kunna, under Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, handled. So that way, and with Millennium Development Goal, we're able to achieve quite a lot. And again, one of his key attributes being prudence, frugality, contributed. Security fund, which state governors take. In some states, it's sometimes more than 50% of the state monthly allocation from the federation account. But P2B happens to be the only governor that has taken the least amount of money as security fee to be able to take care of security issues in the state. And I don't think any governor did more than he did in terms of security, because the number of vehicles running into hundreds that were made available to the police, to the military, to civil defense. I mean, you'll be wondering, where is he really getting this money from? But all were coming from the various sources of revenue in the state. So it is not really how much that was made available to you, but what use do you put them to? And at the end of the day, the one you left behind to protect the future of the state and the future of our children.
In Peter Obi's first 4 years in office, how were you able to tackle the debts you met on ground? Because from my own personal investigation on Peter Obi's administration, I knew it was somewhat hard it was a challenging task, let me not say hard. How would you say Peter Obi will deal with our debt situation when he becomes president next year? In the first 4 years, how do you think he will tackle it? I'm sure he has done it in Anambra. And how do you think he will repeat the same in Nigeria? What will he do better than what the rest have been doing for the past 20 years that they've been failing at it woefully?
Most of these debts were concentrated in pensioners, contractors being owed. There was no project the previous administration handled that couldn't be concluded that P2B didn't finish. You know what has put us in what we are today? It is concentrating on consumption. This country does not produce anything, so you cannot raise money. So you depend on death to achieve the things you want to achieve. He has said it repeatedly that you have to move away from consumption to production. When you go into production, then you can raise money, because that way, both in agri, in manufacturing, industrialization, you'll be able to push the country beyond the threshold where it will going to rely wholly on debt to be able to achieve anything, including developing infrastructure. So he has said it a number of times that this is the only way you can get out of it. There is nothing wrong with borrowing, but everything is wrong with borrowing for consumption. Today, the biggest debt country in the world is America. But America is also one of the most developed countries of the world. Why? Because they are borrowing for production. They are borrowing usefully. They are not borrowing for waste.
How were you selected for the Commissioner of Finance? How did you get your appointment from Peter Obi? Thank you very much.
Peter Obi and I attended the same school, Christ the King College, Onitsha. It was a great institution that produced the likes of Peter Odili, Peter Obi, Chief Justice Alagwa, the great men of this country. Most of them attended this institution called Christ the King College. So I was there. I was a senior, and I was the senior prefect of the school when he was there too. So in the world of finance, we've been relating. We're actually friends. And when he eventually became the governor, he knew what he wanted. The foundation of the school where we came from was founded on the basis of Bonitas Disciplina Scientia. And that means goodness, discipline, and knowledge. So having been in the banking institution, having followed my career, he felt that this person may be able to handle his finances. And he nominated me as a commissioner. And that was all he did. The next thing is for the House of Assembly to interview and discuss with all nominees for commissioners and perhaps special advisors, and then select from there those they find worthy to become commissioners. That was how I was selected.
I was reading through your profile and I saw where you were best graduating student, MBA, University of Lagos, best graduating student, Nigerian stock broken, Nigerian stock exam. And so this gave me joy, because I know folks who want to say, oh, well, you were just a friend with Peter Obi. No, you were more than that. You were a very smart, astute business person, banker, graduated with honors multiple times. As someone who was part of Peter Obi's administration, what would you classify as his top 3 achievements?
Sometimes it's difficult to mention what constitutes the top 3 or even top 5 of Peter Obi's administration, because this administration was founded under this concept we call ANIT, Anambra Integrated Development Strategy. We started it in the P2B's administration. It is a concept that enables the state to focus on various sectors simultaneously. So it's not a question of, he just worked on health and just focused on it, every other thing can go to hell. No. The focus was on virtually all sectors of the economy simultaneously at the same time. The kind of attention that was given to health sector, was given to education sector, was given to infrastructure, was given to environment, especially trying to counter the erosion menace in Anambra State. Because Anambra State happens to be one of the states in this country that has the greatest erosion menace. We did quite a lot in the health sector. He has given examples of what was done in terms of school of nursing, teaching hospital we built from scratch to it's becoming functional today. Then education sector. I don't even need to begin to repeat what he did in the education sector because he was the one that boldly confronted something that many other people before him couldn't do. That was returning these schools to the missions, to their original owners, and funded them directly without actually having to go through the various ministries to avoid delays and what have you. At the end of the day, I'm sure you've heard from him what Anambra State has become, education-wise, health-wise, and infrastructure-wise. Because today, we happen to be the state with the best network of roads in Nigeria.
Anambra State University currently are not on strike, probably being to this implementation done by the administration of Peter Obi, which is very, very monumental. I just want to know what kind of what modality or the foundation that was laid by him, because this is a very, very important thing that we need to talk about in concerning the what we are facing now in terms of funding related to ASU. What are the things that was done during the administration in terms of the financing the university that makes the university up to today among the few universities in Nigeria that is not on strike?
I can tell you that our strategy was the fact that we don't owe any association, any professional, anybody, any professional body. The moment any issue of misunderstanding begins to crop up, the administration has a strategy of engaging such associations, such bodies, and dealing with the matter very dispassionately so that it doesn't fester. In the case of Anambra State University, a situation where a state-owned institution is left to exist without appropriate financial support from the state government. What do you expect to happen in that kind of institution? Where you have lecturers begin to go on strike, students begin to complain, begin to run down the whole place because toilets are not working, pipe-borne water is not running. This is one thing the administration ensured that must never happen. So from day one, their subvention was agreed upon and was made available to them timely and promptly. That way, with their own internally generated revenue, they were able to run the institutions professionally and peacefully. That was why you hardly hear of such strikes taking place in such institutions, such as Anambra State University.
I know Peter Obi is big on education. We've seen what Boko Haram did with saying Boko is haram, which means education is sin. We've seen what insecurity has also contributed to further making sure that a lot of people are not going to school. We've seen how Jonathan failed, even after he built the Almajiri schools in the north. Please, we want to know, what is it that Peter Obi is going to bring to the table? Do you see him as somebody that is going to bring drastic change in the educational system in Nigeria? We've seen what ASU has been for the past 15 years. Please, share more light to us. Let's see and know about what he's going to do. Please.
When the manifestos of these political parties, specifically Labour Party, comes out, I think we will see what strategy will be put in place to deal with various sectors of the Nigerian economy. All I can say now is that P2P did it in Anambra State. There is no reason why he can't do it in the country, because Anambra State is simply a microcosm of the larger entity. So there's no reason why he can't do that. First of all, is to have an understanding and belief that education is the key to economic progress. Is a major key. Once you believe that, then every other thing will fall in place. In Anambra State, we knew where we were as a state in terms of education, like WAEC, university systems, and so on. For example, when computer education was introduced into secondary schools in Anambra State, we created computer classrooms. We didn't have computer professionals to teach the students and handle those computer laboratories. Actually, at that time, we called them computer laboratories. P2B's concept was put the computers there, put the printers there, put the CPUs there, leave the children to go there and figure them out. Man, it was like magic. We thought he was saying something that was like Greek to us. How can you prepare a computer laboratory, put all the computers there, put chairs, put everything, and then leave the students to go there and figure it out? I tried that in my house and it worked like magic, even in my own personal house. I never had a computer lecturer come to the house to teach my children. I just got the computer, put it there. Everybody go there and learn how to use computer. And before you know it, they were all wizards with the system. And Anambra State schools became, in fact, internationally, I think there was one competition. I can't remember exactly the name of that competition that has to do with computer science. Anambra came first in that. So it's a matter of focus. What do I want to achieve? Can you imagine in a country like this, you say history will not be a part of the syllabus? People are born into a country, they don't know where their country started and where it's going. What kind of education curricula is that? Like I said, he's done it before, did it in Anambra State, and I believe he will do it in Nigeria. Secondary schools in Anambra State, let me be specific, with secondary schools in Anambra State were taken over by the government. And this continued for quite a long time. And I don't need to restate it, that most of the secondary schools, even primary schools, went down the drains as a result, because there was no funding, there was no management, there was nothing until P2B came to Anambra State. And I'm sure some states may have emulated him and decided that schools will have to go back to their original owners, the missions or individuals if they own schools, and associations that own schools. Not only that, these schools were handed over back to their original owners, but they were funded by government, that initial stage, to take off. And today, your guess is as good as mine, what the education sector is like today in Anambra State. Same will happen in Nigeria if he's given the opportunity of ruling this country.
So many people have been accusing His Excellency P2B of investing Anambra State money in his family business. I want to know if you have any clue about this stuff.
It's surprising when people say that kind of thing, because I don't know how to begin to address this kind of issue. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing like that. P2B ran Anambra State government professionally. Everybody was mandated to account for what you do in your ministry. I was part and parcel of the people who worked on the investment of Anambra State in a company like Interfact Beverages Limited, that is the brewery. Anambra State invested, a number of Anambra people also invested in the company, and his company may have also invested in the company, but I don't know about using Anambra State money for the purposes of his family business. It is not easy for somebody to go and take money from the state coffers and go and put it in somewhere, family business, nobody will know. Of course, you can be sure that if any such thing had happened, even if it's just 10 million naira, he went into the state coffers and took away and went and put into family business. How bad? Everybody will know that now. You don't operate alone. Do you know the processes, expenditure go before they come out and money is eventually disbursed? To talk of somebody going to the state account to remove money and go and put in family business. That's why I say it is ridiculous when people raise this kind of questions. P2B was a comfortable man before he came into government. I remember when P2B wanted to run for governorship, and I asked him, how are you going to raise this money? I know what he said. I know what he did. He's a very comfortable person financially, and he's been in business right from, I can tell you, right from the teenage age. Before he talked about going into politics, P2B was a made man. He was the chairman of, the youngest chairman of a bank, Fidelity Bank. And if he wants to do any kind of business, he knows how to fund it, how to prepare for it and do it. So coming into government and abandon his personal business and family business, there are people, he has siblings, those people who could take over from him to handle their family business while he was in government. So I don't know if anybody should be raising that question. And if anybody thinks he took money from the state and put in family business. Show us how and documents to prove that kind of thing. Because for me, as a commissioner for finance, there's no such thing. And P2B will work with you in such a way that no commissioner in the state will have the opportunity, even if you have that tendency to touch these funds. And that was why all of us, or some of us, or many of us that graduated from commissionership in Anambra State under P2B went back to our various professions. Because P2B will tell you that politics is not a profession. Somebody says, who are you? I say, I'm a politician. What's that? He doesn't believe in that. You should have handwork. There is something you are doing. You could be called upon to come and contribute in the development of the state. After that, you go back to whatever you are doing. If you want to practice politics, you are free to do that if you choose to, but not to start doing it thinking of touching state funds for anything. In any case, it is not easy. It is not that easy to touch state funds. And I can tell you, the only way commissioners or anybody else for that matter can touch state funds anyway is when the chief executive finds himself or herself also touching state funds. But when he's not prepared to touch it, why will you touch it? Nobody will encourage you to do that. Even the system will not encourage you to touch state funds. So that was why we're able to save a lot of money. We're able to achieve so many things, and we're able to keep that kind of money people are finding difficult to believe that could be kept in the coffers of a state government.
Can you maybe elaborate more, sort of expatiate on that particular investment P2B administration did in Interfact?
As a commissioner for finance, I was one of the people that worked on that investment. Myself, the commissioner for lands, then the attorney general and commissioner for justice of the state. It was a rigorous discussion engaging the owners of the breweries in South Africa, here in Nigeria, in a series of meetings to determine the modalities for which Anambra State is going to bring this company to Nigeria, to Anambra State in particular, and what conditions and what Anambra State will be able to invest. Well, of course, principally for the purpose of ensuring that we have significant development, employment opportunities which the company had to grant. I'm not aware of any other process that took place in that. And some stakeholders in Anambra State were also invited to invest, to spread out the investment.
Are there things we can do beyond saying the handover notes that we've seen are sufficient? Or are there records available that you can make available to us as we take on this dirty fight with the opposition figures?
It is difficult to say I'll make records available to you. I mean, by going to the bank to print out bank statements and bank balances, because it is in the public domain. This thing had been published in the public domain, citing the bank's account numbers, and I'm sure that the bank will be duly obliged to let you have the information. It's all there. It's clear. I don't know what other records people expect to have. The handover note was properly signed. The ceremony for handover was also duly attended by a lot of dignitaries in the country, including them, Okonjo-Iweala, some people like Dangote. They were all there at the Women Development Center where he did the formal handover and account of his stewardship.
What can you say were his weaknesses as a leader? Because every one of us has our strength and our weaknesses. So I want to know those things that you have identified working with him for like 6-7 years.
One major weakness I know he has is that he's very stubborn. But he could be stubborn for good reasons. And that also brings up this issue of good governance. When he insists on it, he's very stubborn with it. And people could say that is a weakness, because why can't you at least give in a little bit? But I know that at the end of the day, he plays out well. He plays out better for the interest of the state, because he's not doing it for his private pocket. That's one key thing that I know.
You said you did only 6 years with His Excellency. I want to know whether you guys fell out or you just decided to go on your own. Thank you.
No, we didn't fall out. For the entire period, our principal, P2B, he prefers to be called Mr. P2B. We didn't fall out with him. It was a restructure. Some people had to come in and some people had to drop out. There's no question of falling out with anybody. No. So it was a normal course of cabinet review. And that's exactly why most of us are still with him. I'm grateful to him for making me a commissioner, where I had the opportunity of excelling myself, as a commissioner for finance in Nigeria. And during this period also, I was the chairman of Commissioners of Finance of Nigeria. The Association of Commissioners of Finance of Nigeria.
You were the finance commissioner, so likely I know you have your differences being the lifeline of the state, and he's a prudent person. So I'd like to know how you handled your differences, being that he's a very prudent man. So how did it affect you? Does he insist on having his way, or do you have a way of coming to a common ground in running the costs and finances of the state and maybe budget and all of that?
Incidentally, we belong to the same school of prudence, but we are not just the only people in government. We have other commissioners, other special advisors, and people who handle issues of expenditure in their various ministries. There is one thing, and I think I've had him say it during his engagements with obedience. If you come to executive council meeting, because that's where we thrash out issues, that's where we debate expenditures, debate approvals and all kinds of things. If you come there and you keep quiet 2 or 3 times, he will ask you to resign. Why? Because he doesn't need people who cannot make serious contribution to decision making. And where do we make these decisions? In the executive council. So when projects are reviewed and brought through tender spot, it's not even enough. It doesn't end there. It is brought to the State Executive Council for further debates and discussions. Of course, as a prudent person, he will insist that things be done in such a way that money could be saved. But some other people say, no, this will not be enough. And at the end of the day, we come to a common ground. So there's nothing like having differences. Yes, we may have some differences, but at the end of the day, there was enough room for people to ventilate their ideas, whatever differences, whatever different ideas you think you have. There was always a room for that in the executive council, and people were enjoying it because he's not the kind of person that will restrain not to talk. If you talk, I will sack you. No, there's nothing like that. As a matter of fact, if you don't talk for a while, you'll be called upon. What's happening? Why are you keeping quiet? Why are you not contributing to this debate? So we didn't have much differences as a person because I belong to that school of prudence and good governance. And quite a good number of us also belong to that school.
During his time, none of the state assembly members were from his party. How was it like passing of bills and getting approval from the state assembly? Because these are some of the issues people are raising now, that it will be very, very difficult, even if he wins election today, because he may not have the majority in legislative arms of government. It will be almost impossible for him to function. How was he able to function considering all those things? Thank you so much, sir.
I must tell you that it depends on the individual we're talking about. It was a tough game, quite all right, if you don't have members of your political party in the State House of Assembly. It's a tough game, quite all right, to get them to approve most of the things you're doing. And perhaps that was the reason why he was easily impeached when he began the process of good governance in Anambra State. It's like, is this what we're going to see with this man? This man won't allow us to, enjoy the dividends of being in government. But you see, he didn't say we're not going to enjoy the dividends of being in government, but that things must be done properly. Things must be managed prudently. And we follow the normal course of presenting a budget to the State House of Assembly. And of course, the various things that take place, interviews, discussions, meetings with various ministries, departments, and agencies of government. And at the end of the day, everything is agreed upon and the budget will be passed.
Would you say there was a very, very big issue with the administration initially when he chose to take his route of fiscal responsibility, accountability, transparency, that maybe again ultimately resulted in impeachment? But for some of you in the cabinet, what were challenges you went through, things you did to fight back with saying the mandate of Peter Obi, with making sure that he was prudent with finances, he was honest as a politician, as a government elected official, were things you all wanted to live up to?
Yeah, if you listen to Peter Obi in his various speeches and addresses to various people, associations, and audience, he will tell you why he was impeached in the first instance. Here is a man who has come to save the state and take it forward beyond what others are doing. Now, there is nothing that is happening in the accounts of the state government that is hidden. That's one thing you must know. As a commissioner for finance, I went to EFCC 27 times to answer to criticisms, petitions, a lot of unfounded petitions to EFCC. EFCC will, of course, write me because P2B has immunity. He won't go and answer anybody. Then I will go. We heard that this road that was supposed to be constructed with 200 million, that you people spent 2 billion naira doing it. How can you account for it? I said, okay, no problem. I'm coming back. I'll go and come back with a file stating exactly how that contract was reviewed by the State Tenders Board, what was spent, monies that were issued, checks that were issued, and everything. By the time you finish it, EFCC will say, oh boy, go home. We've seen. And that was why, since P2B left Anambra State as a governor, nobody has called him to come and answer to any missing money in Anambra State. And Anambra State has never said so and so funds were missing. As a commissioner for finance, who stayed 6 years during the turbulent period of P2B in administration, nobody has invited me to come and answer to any question concerning the finances of Anambra State. And nobody, to the best of my knowledge, has also called the accountant general of the state, the first one I worked with, the second one I worked with, and then the third one that rounded up with him. Nobody has called him to come and answer to the finances of the state because everything was properly done. Accounts were properly kept. Retirements of expenditures were properly made. And we followed strictly the policies of the tenders. If you are going to be awarded a contract for a road and you tender, amongst other tenders, the State Tenders Board reviews them. At the end of the day, it is awarded to, if it is 20% mobilization you will be given 25% mobilization. And at the end of the day, you will be paid based on certificates generated in the course of the work. It was not very sweet to some people at the time these things were happening. But at the end of the day, I think people beat their chest and said, yeah, we had it right. And P2B was able to build almost 1,000 kilometers of road in the period of 8 years, built hospitals, teaching hospital, state secretariats that we had only one. And by the time we finished, we had almost 4 different large buildings as state secretariat.
P2B is talking about insecurity, and I know he tackled the insecurity situation in Anambra State very well. How did he do it, and how will he do same when voted to be the president of Nigeria next year?
I keep saying that if you're able to articulate and implement a program successfully at the state level, you can replicate that at the federal level. Because all it takes is the belief and focus that this is what I want to do. And of course, you would have articulated the strategies for its implementation. At the point, Anambra State became, a hotspot for insecurity amongst the Committee of States in Nigeria. But P2B will not go and carry, or the commissioners with him, go and carry guns and knives to go and face insecurity, kidnappers, and so on and so forth. No. But what he did was to engage the security operatives from the point of view of civil defense, the military, the police, giving them tools and engaging them almost like on a weekly basis. The Security Council meeting that was taking place on a monthly, I think it was on a weekly basis, and providing what it takes to make them effective. There was no other magic. So by doing that at the state level and succeeding, I believe you will be able to replicate that at the federal level, and you will also succeed. Today in Nigeria, I'm sure that this security issue can be effectively tackled if a focused leader takes on the mantle. I believe that he has his own strategy, which may not be made public because it's a security issue. But at the fullness of time, I'm sure whatever strategies that have been put in place for the purpose of tackling security in Nigeria will be brought to bear.
Were there any projects in Anambra that were paid upfront 100% that were not executed by the contractors? Obviously, it's a country where people may break the law. If there were ever situations like that, was there follow-up with prosecution, investigation, or did you have a near 100% record where all contracts paid for were fully, duly executed, signed off?
Not to the best of my knowledge that in the course of P2B's administration, let me say our administration, that somebody was paid fully 100% for a job not executed. It's never done. It's never done and cannot happen under P2B's administration.
I'm a Lagosian by origin, and I've been privileged to be in Anambra, and then I can attest to some of all these things that you're saying. The only issue that I think
he failed to get right has to do with what I would consider as successor. I want to believe from your own experience in working with him, you might be in position to say a thing or the other. For instance, the succession issue that now gave birth to the last governor, eventually led to a lot of mess. And in fact, I was in Anambra in June and I got a lot of feelers that shows that what he left behind eventually was squandered by, Obiano, and it shows that the succession plan didn't produce what we call a continuity in governance in Anambra State. Coming on board now as president, how we can make sure he gets the best delivered by himself, and then having a succession plan that, because the fact is that Nigeria is in a mess now, and it will take beyond even 16 years to get it to what we really desired. So I don't know if you can say a thing or the other in that line, a succession arrangement that, can make sure there's a sustainability for what we want is years and like that, so that, we won't have to come back again to level zero. Okay, it will really take a magician to to determine the kind of successor that you have, 16 years, 10 years or so on after you've left office. To really take a magician. But I think setting the right tone from the beginning is what is important. If today we're able to have somebody like Peter Obi assume the mantle of leadership in Nigeria and set the right tones, which we believe he will be able to do, it will take more than 4-8 years to achieve that. But if he says the right tone, people will see. Because Nigerians are really tired. Both Nigerians in Nigeria and Nigerians in diaspora. Everybody is really tired of all these shenanigans happening all the time. They want things done properly. Peter Obi left Anambra State coffers with a lot of money, okay? Some people may not agree, but I know that it's verifiable. Professor Soludo tells us that he inherited over 100 billion debt. And it's probably going to take a little more to be able to achieve some measure of success. Nobody knows how his own will play out. I don't want to be a soothsayer that will tell you what will happen in the next 10 years after I've left office. But I believe that if the right tone is set and with the kind of feelings that Nigerians have today begins to get sustained, then I think we're in for some goodies. I believe P2B will set the right tone if he's given the opportunity. And setting the right tone, Nigerians will like to follow. And once Nigerians follow and things begin to go right, it will be difficult for anybody to come and begin to take things back. I believe that person will be stopped by good-spirited Nigerians.